Is that how you talk to your master?
Zane asked, frowning at Caleb.
Master, are you joking?
He crossed his arms over his chest.
If you were still the Martell family heir or had any type of talent, then you could call yourself my master.
He paused and looked behind him to see that the two bodyguards had returned. Then he turned back to Zane.
But now you have nothing, you're just trash, and you don't deserve to be my master.
Waving at the bodyguards, he ordered.
Guys, show him the way out.
The two men rolled up their sleeves and headed toward Zane, and it was clear they were spoiling for a fight.
You think you can defeat me?
Zane asked, raising an eyebrow. As he faced them, he pulled out an ordinary wooden sword. He had brought the wooden sword because he didn't want to kill anyone at the competition, but it would be a good enough weapon if he needed to defend himself. If he used even a small percentage of his power when wielding the sword, he would even be able to kill a martial artist at the 6th stage of body tempering. Upon seeing Zane's wooden sword, Caleb and the bodyguards began mocking him. I didn't expect you to have fallen so low that you can't even afford to buy a real sword. Caleb then turned to bodyguards and said,
You two, hurry up and get rid of him.
The bodyguards moved forward, but Zane's wooden sword suddenly flashed with a yellow light that swept through the air. As Zane used the art of sword drawing, the wooden blade descended on the two men, who were so stunned that they didn't even react. Before the men knew what was happening, blood stained their clothes and they dropped to the ground. They simply lay there, staring up at Zane, in no position to stop him from entering the tower. Zane had used a measly 10% of his strength in the attack, holding back to avoid causing fatal injuries. Otherwise, he would have torn open their bellies, giving them each a slow, painful death. Caleb trembled uncontrollably as a chill ran down his spine and his heart racing as he gawked at the bodyguards. He screamed in bewilderment.
This is impossible. Bram said that your energy center had been destroyed. What magic are you using? How can you still possess such strength?
Zane glared at him, making him shudder in fear. Afraid of angering him further, Caleb stepped aside. As Zane entered the assembly of stars, he brushed by Caleb and whispered menacingly,
Do not forget that no matter how weak I am, I'm still your master. Know your place or it won't be a wooden sword next time.
The scene at the luxurious Starlight Tower buzzed with activity. The restaurant's 2 floors were adorned with lanterns and colorful banners, resonating with cheers and applause. On the expansive first floor, draconic incense was burning in the furnace and gentle smoke rose into the air. Ancient demonic pillars imported from a distant land were scattered throughout the room, and they emitted strands of cold air agitating the body's vitality. The grand tables and chairs were carved from rare and expensive wood, and the bowls and silverware were made from the sparkly, translucent ivory of demonic beasts. Glasses were filled with expensive wine that came straight from Governor Kramer's mansion. However, the thing that caught everyone's eye was the flickering crystal screen hanging overhead. It depicted the stars and the Milky Way, magnifying them for everyone's viewing pleasure. Below the crystal screen was a large arena where 2 people were locked in brutal combat. One was a sturdy young man dressed in a black robe, and the other was a large man wielding a sharp axe. The combatants circled each other, waiting to strike. Suddenly, one of the hosts announced,
We present to you Atticus and his dueling partner, Gustav!
Zane recognized the 2 men from a previous assembly. He tried to slip through the crowd unnoticed, but every one of the 100 or so spectators gradually shifted their attention from the arena to him. One spectator muttered,
Zane, what's he doing here? Shouldn't someone be guarding the entrance?
How did he get an invitation? Didn't he lose his cultivation because of Bram? He's a disgrace.
Bram was on the 2nd floor and he uttered a curse when he saw Zane. Then he turned to speak to Freya.
Didn't you say that someone took care of Zane? Why is he here?
Freya panicked and rushed to explain,
I dispatched Jace and 2 others to deal with him a few days ago. That can't be him.
But as she took a closer look, she realized it was Zane and her jaw dropped. Bram said to Freya, his voice almost a growl,
I don't care how you do it, but I want to watch him die in that arena today. If you can't arrange that, then you can forget about our agreement.
Freya paled, but she nodded her head in agreement, and then she fixed her vicious gaze on Zane. Meanwhile, Elora sat in an elaborate chair on the first floor, surrounded by a group of martial artists. She had reached the 8th stage of body tempering, and her guards were at the 9th stage or even higher. She would have preferred to be seated on the 2nd floor, which offered a better view of the action, but that location was reserved for talented masters who were qualified to take part in the competition. When she spotted Zane, she gasped in surprise.
How unexpected!
Elora muttered.
What on earth is going on? His cultivation has reached the 5th stage of body tempering, but I have no idea how he managed it.
Otto sat next to her, hiding his cultivation skills. He was also shocked to see Zane there, and he didn't understand how the young man had advanced by 2 stages in just a few days. It was rare in Kintyre County, perhaps even in the entire Yarrow Kingdom, to make such progress.
Zane is becoming more and more interesting. He might be...
Elora trailed off and smiled as she lost herself in thought. Meanwhile, Zane sat alone at an empty table. Zane picked up the wine before him and drank it in one gulp, ignoring all the whispers about him. He had participated in the Assembly of Stars 3 years prior, and he had won first place through sheer strength. During the assembly, he made the heavenly sword technique famous, and he used it to defeat everyone he fought. During that competition, he had barely beaten Bram in the arena, but he had done enough to earn his family's respect, making him their heir. 3 years later, everything had changed, and his family all thought he was worthless. As Zane enjoyed his glass of wine, Bram looked down at him with contempt.
3 years ago, he embarrassed me by winning first place.
Bram muttered to himself.
But this time, I'll teach him a lesson and prove to everyone that I truly deserve to be the Martell family's heir. It's my time now.
Can't wait for more? Catch the next episode tomorrow. And if you are ready to binge the whole series, download our app now. Tap the link in our bio to start your journey.